Could we please have our two readings, first from the book of Genesis and then from the epistle to the Hebrews? Thank you.
Genesis 15, verses 1 to 6. This is God's covenant with Abraham. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abraham said, O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abraham said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the heavens and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited him as righteousness. Amen.
The second reading is from Hebrews chapter 11, verses 1 to 3 and then 8 to 16. By faith. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. By faith, Abraham, even though he was past age, and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he considered him faithful who had made his promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. And they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Amen.
You may have worked out by now that the service this morning is about faith. And we're going to sing again, this time Have faith in God, my heart.
Faith in God in your pain and your sorrow. His heart is touched with your grief and despair. Cast all your cares and your burdens upon Him, and leave Him there. Oh, leave Him there. Have faith in God, He's on His throne. Have faith in God, He watches o'er His own.
That I thought it was quite appropriate. Abraham is called by God to leave behind his past, his roots, his culture, his sense of belonging, and his status and position in society and in his family. He is to leave behind everything that is closest to him, everything except his wife and his nephew Lot. And he goes without a moment's hesitation. He does what God is telling him to do, but it's not long before he is severely tested as things begin to go wrong. Abraham's story is long and complex, and he's not always seen in the best of lights. But in the end, God's promise comes true, and through Isaac, his dynasty is born. Undoubtedly, the most testing moment is when God tells him to sacrifice his son. But in his very obedience, even though his heart must have been breaking, God provides another sacrifice, and all is well. Abram's faith and trust is seen. He has passed the test. His place as father of the Jewish race, the father of God's people, has been confirmed and today is recognized as such, not just by the Jews, but as Christians and Muslims alike, who see him as their founding father. He is seen and celebrated as the shared root that links the three faiths together as people of the book, and celebrated as a role model, as someone who said yes to God. For all of us, saying yes to God can have consequences beyond our wildest dreams. His story is taken up by the writer of the book of Hebrews, whose readers are evidently in need of some encouragement. In the last verse before our reading, we read, "But we are not among those who shrink back and so are lost, but are among those who have faith and are saved." Faith is believing that there is more to life than meets the eye. It is placing trust in something that at present cannot be seen. It is a way of living that treats what is seen now as both revealing the present and obscuring the joy of what is to come. Abraham is an example of this kind of risky and courageous living. He traveled and trusted in a promise that would take a long time to be fulfilled. He was seeking a place of refuge and had to endure the status as a stranger and a foreigner to achieve it. This is to encourage Christians who are seeking a different kind of kingdom, that the city whose architect and builder is God. Their inheritance is to be spiritual rather than physical, and they are to have faith and trust in that's in that city and the life that is to come. The early Christians found themselves alienated from both Jewish and pagan communities because they would no longer take part in their rituals and sacrifices. They were strangers in their own land. But the writer of the Hebrews reassures them that they're not dispossessed, but truly part of the people and purpose of God. Faith is about living with uncertainty, and we do so like to be in control of our lives, don't we? When Abraham was traveling, he had no map to guide him. He had to rely totally on God to give him directions. When we go traveling on a holiday or for other reasons, we know where we're going. We know our physical destination. But we also have maps and sat-navs to help us get there safely. And even if I know I've done quite a lot of travelling by plane, which I'm not sure I should admit to with the current climate crisis, but I have in the past. And when you're travelling, you can often access the entertainment system and see a map of where you've come from and where you're going and how long it's going to take you. But faith's not like that. John Hull, who is blind, writes, "In the Bible, mostly written with the assumption of a sighted world, it is refreshing to find a long, famous central passage that regards blindness as a model of faith. Abraham's experience was like a blind person making an unfamiliar journey, for he set out not knowing where he was going. Without physical sight, we do not know what lies ahead. We have to feel our way gingerly, step by step. We may have our ultimate destination in mind, but we have to trust in God's love to guide us. One of Abraham's strengths was that he kept looking forward, whatever happened. For us, having faith in God's guidance means we mustn't lose our nerve whenever things are going wrong. Our lives depend on God's steadfast love, and when we understand that, then at least sometimes we may find ourselves following Abraham on a journey into the dark, testing our conviction of things unseen, and that in the darkness we may find God. Abraham and his family were wanderers. They lived in tents, and the symbol of the tent is found in many places in the Old Testament, or in fact in the New. We think of examples where people move their tents. And even in the New Testament, when Peter, James and John are up the Mount of Transfiguration with Jesus, they want to build 3 shelters, 3 tents for Elijah, Moses and Jesus. But the fact that they're mentioned so many times serves to remind us that the people of God began life as a nomadic people, and that we also, in spite of our homes and our churches, are still essentially wanderers. We are still journeying towards our final destination. In the Bible, the sky itself was seen as some sort of global tent, and the Ark of the Covenant was housed in a tent as the people wandered about in the wilderness. It was going to be hundreds of years before a temple was built to house it. John, in his Gospel, talks of how Jesus made his tent among us. And the writer of the Hebrews wants his readers to accept that they are vulnerable. The Christian life means that we live day by day, always moving on. The pattern set in the Bible carries on. Now, I don't know if you've ever been camping, either with scouts or guides when you were younger, or perhaps with your family. If the weather is fine, it's great, and everybody enjoys themselves. But when the weather is stormy, it's a very different story. And as the tent sways from side to side in the wind and starts to leak, we long for the security of bricks and mortar. Faith's a bit like camping. It sometimes seems like an exciting adventure. But when we are being buffeted by the storms of life, we long for more certainty, for more control. We will soon be at the time of year when many people will be facing change. Our young people will change classes or schools, or face leaving school and moving on to the next phase of their education. My grandson is 6, and when he first went to school, he was in rabbit class. He was told at the end of his year in rabbit class that he was going to be in otter class. And he was absolutely devastated until he realized that all of rabbit class were going to be in otter class in the next year. He just thought it was just him and it was going to be on his own. And many young people feel that when they're asked to move classes or whatever. Having been a teacher, I know this from personal experience. But we're also approaching the start of a new connectional year, when many ministers change churches. And in fact, we have 3 new ministers coming to this circuit. We have young Suk, who's coming to Caversham and Woodley, Claire, who's coming to Basingstoke, and John, who is entering ministry for the first time and is coming to join us in the Heartlands section. In each case, they will be leaving the familiar and walking into the unknown. They have to take a walk of faith and trust that all will be well. Our faith challenges us to think of others and their situations and to do something about it. Our camping adventure, whether it be good or bad, ends when we arrive home. But there are many in this world today for whom this is not true. Think of those thousands of refugees fleeing from conflict, persecution or poverty, many making terrifying journeys across open seas in small boats or packed into airless containers in order to seek a better life. And we have been reminded strongly of this in the loss of the boat off Greece, a boat completely overloaded, the people desperate to get to Europe paid thousands of dollars or pounds or whatever to seek a better life. They are all seeking to find somewhere to call home. For many, living in a tent in a crowded refugee camp is the only life they know. They have no hope for the future. We can't help them all, but are we doing all we can to use our resources to reach out to them? Because that is what God is calling us to do. That is what our faith is challenging us to consider. Living by faith can be uncomfortable. So where is this heavenly city that we're promised? Where is this place that we're journeying towards? People of antiquity pointed to the heavens and believed that God was up there. In this age of space exploration and scientific discoveries, we can no longer think in the same way. However, we still believe that there is more to life than the material reality around us. There is a dimension beyond what we can see, hear, or feel. The gifts of love, hope, and faith cannot be measured or proved, but these are gifts of our unseen God, and they are giving meaning and purpose to our lives. And it is our faith in the existence of God and our willingness to trust in his plan for us that will bring us to the end of the journey, safe in the heavenly city, wherever that might be. Amen.